Welcome back, folks, Husker fans. This is Chris Peterson from the HuskerBigRed.com, and joining me again, my co-host Danny Gillette of the GreatCornholio.org. This is the Husker Big Red podcast. We're also going to have this on the Husker Big Red YouTube channel. It's Monday morning. We're back with our Monday morning Fallout episode after we got not a big win, but a 21-point win and a better than a loss. So 38-17 victory. Danny, now it's Monday morning. You've had a little time to think about this victory. What are your reactions here on Monday morning? How are you feeling about the Huskers?
I'm feeling pretty good. Yes, people will say it was North Dakota, and yes, people will say, "Oh, it's nothing to get excited about." But a win is a win, and I mean, they've been hard to come by lately in Lincoln, and so I'm happy with it. I mean, if nothing else, Saturday showed that we need to run the damn ball, as people like to say. And Anthony Grant, I'll tell you what, he's something special.
Yeah, man, I totally agree. That's like my biggest takeaway. The more I think about this game and let it marinate a little bit, these first 2 weeks, I'm looking at Nebraska's got a star player in Anthony Grant, and they found a running back. That I believe that Anthony Grant's the best running back Nebraska's had since Amir Abdullah. I mean, we haven't seen anybody like this in the Scott Frost era that they can hand the ball to and say, "Hey, man, go make a play." And we'll talk about that. Let's talk about it right now. The play calling was a big, topic of conversation. It was kind of addressed in the post-game press conference. Scott Frost kind of, glazed over the question and said he wasn't really going to talk about the play calling, but there's no question that the play calling was different in this game. There was 42 running plays called, I believe only 21 passes, so almost a 2-to-1 run pass ratio. And it was clear in the second half they didn't trust Casey Thompson to win this game. They put it in the hands of Anthony Grant and this much maligned offensive line, and they delivered. So, what did you think about all the play calling, I guess, in the second half? And do you think that Scott Frost did take it over?
Well, I don't know if it wasn't as much that they didn't trust Casey Thompson as they didn't trust the offensive line to protect him and keep him upright. I mean, Saturday, we said they looked good against Northwestern. They looked horrible on Saturday, and so I think it was one of those situations where the coaches didn't want to leave Casey hung out to dry, so to speak, so they relied on the running backs, and I really loved to see it because you know Nebraska, even last year, was a good running football team, and we just didn't run the ball enough. And that commitment to the run in the second half really kind of put the pace of the game in Nebraska's favor. And it also allowed them to, eat up the clock, get big yards, get Anthony Grant into a rhythm. And it was great to see. And it's something I hope we see more of because, boy, watching him, get the ball, make his cuts, hit the hole, it's so much fun to watch.
Yeah, he's got like 290 yards through his first two games. And I believe that's more rushing yards than any Nebraska running back has ever had during their
He edged
first two
out Taylor
games.
Martinez,
Yeah.
I
So, I
saw.
mean,
So,
back to back 100-yard games. I mean, he's been everything that, he's been as good as advertised and more. I didn't think he was going to be this good. I mean, I thought he was going to start, but I would not have expected, I guess, back to back 100-yard games because I just thought it was going to be more of a run, more of a timeshare situation. But hell, man, I'm keep Ramir Johnson on the bench with that guy. Nobody else except for AJ Allen. I'm pretty impressed with AJ Allen though too.
yep.
He ended up with like 60 yards. He scored that other touchdown. Yeah, I'm feeling pretty good about this running back tandem. I think, do you think that we're going to keep seeing that, going into Georgia Southern this week? Do you think that the running game, I guess I'll put it this way, do you think that Nebraska's going to keep running the damn ball?
I hope so because it's really a great asset when you can have two backs that can provide a spark. And AJ Allen, I'm very impressed with him, and I think it speaks to the job that Brian Applewhite is doing in the running back room. It's been I started covering this team in let's see the my first season was fall 2019, and I can't remember a situation where we had two actual running backs, not gadget players like Wandale Robinson, if you will, but running backs that we could just count on to give the ball and know that they would get production. And, that's AJ Allen. I mean, AJ Allen is the perfect complementary piece to Grant, and he also allows for, Grant to get a blow when needed because boy, it felt like he was carrying the game on his back at times Saturday. And you know what? He was up for the challenge. So that's great to see.
I think another thing people forget about too with the offensive line is running the football consistently makes their job easier. I mean, it gives you momentum, lets you run block, but the fact is when you have these pass rushers and you're constantly putting them in run blocking situations, that can help wear those guys down. When they have to hold up against the offensive line. And I just felt like that was a big confidence booster for the offensive line, and I feel like instead of you know I do feel like that the play calling has hurt the offensive line a little bit, just because I mean, recognize your personnel. This isn't an offensive line that you can throw the football with 40 times and they're going to just protect really well. You have to run the ball, keep it in, because the bottom line is if you're in 2nd and 5 or 3rd and 5, the pass rush is going to be a little different than if it's 3rd and 12. I mean, that's just, so I think that's something that also played into that running the ball a little bit more, is to try to get the offensive line in a situation where they're confident in their run blocking, and then they can kind of pass block from there.
And truth be told, you talked about recognizing your personnel. If I had Trey Palmer and Marcus Washington, I'd try to throw the ball as many times as possible too. But in this case, it's not. It wasn't the most efficient way to get things done, and it was interesting because they kind of took a play out of North Dakota's playbook, so to speak, in the second half. Just run the ball, drain the clock, wear that defense down, and then the final touchdown, I believe it was from Allen, was kind of the game winner.
Allen scored the second one. Brewington actually he caught the 38-17 one, but yeah, AJ Allen got the one that made it to 31-17, and Anthony Grant broke the tie. And Trey Palmer helped with, I believe it was 17-17. It was 3rd and 12, and he threw it up. Trey Palmer made the play, got the first down, and then Anthony Grant took it for a 46-yard touchdown. I believe that's how that kind of sequence went down. The defense made some plays,
Nate
and
Borkature made a play too. He had
Borkature,
a solid day.
he made a couple of big plays. So yeah, I feel good about him. He's kind of a young guy, and but you got to Brewington too made the nice catch.
Yeah.
He had a I believe he had a drop earlier in the game that he, on a pass he didn't come up with. So it was good to see those guys stepping up with Vokalek out.
Earlier last week, I kind of was a little bit worried about the tight end depth because I think, the way we're going to use Vokalik, he's gonna get hurt. The human body is not made to be, for example, 6'5", 300 pounds, 230 pounds, whatever, running over people. So tight ends are more susceptible to injuries. It was good to see that depth for Nebraska kind of really shine because that was a big question mark I had. And even if they can get, and I kind of said this in my article on Sunday, even if Borkshire can get 4 or 5 catches, Brewington can get a catch or two just to take some of the load off Vokalik as the grind of the season continues, then I'd be very happy with that.
Yeah, I think it's good to see like Brewington especially catching the ball because he is such an effective blocker. I mean, I really think that they need his physical presence out there blocking. And so if you can catch the ball too, I mean, that's going to set up some nice play action, opportunities for Casey Thompson. But, I do want to bring back to this point. I think that Casey Thompson has not delivered so far in the first 2 games. I have not been that impressed with his play. I mean, you look at he's got 4 turnovers in 2 games, 3 interceptions. That interception in the second half against North Dakota, that could have been very costly. And he made a bad read. I mean, I haven't been that impressed with Casey Thompson through 2 games.
Yeah, I mean, he's had his ups and downs. Obviously, that amazing play against Northwestern where he threw it all, it seemed like off his back foot and started to twirl around. Like, so there have been flashes, but he hasn't been able to put it all together. And now when I used to, was part of a college football team, we would bring in transfers, quarterbacks, and expect them to learn a playbook in a year and hope for the best. And that was tough. That was tough on them. And, it was kind of tough on the offense as everybody got acclimated. Hopefully, this is something, that's what Thompson is going through and he'll get better. But he's looked shaky over the first 2 games.
I just don't think that, looking at him, I don't think he's a guy that you want throwing the football 40 times a game. I don't think that
No.
this is, and I think that's what Mark Whipple wants to do. I think he threw it too much against Northwestern. And I think he was going to throw it too much against North Dakota until Scott Frost stepped in. And Scott Frost should have done that. He should have stepped in the Northwestern game and said, "Hey man, run the damn ball. We need to stop throwing it every single down, even though we're down by 3 points. You're acting like we're down 17 in the Northwestern game. Anthony Grant hardly ever got the ball in the second half, and it was like a bunch of 3-and-outs. It just um, so I was glad to see something happen there because literally Scott Frost was coaching for his job on Saturday. If they lose that game, I don't, maybe the buyout saves him, but I think Nebraska fans would have been that would have been a bad situation if you lose at home to North Dakota. And it was 7-7 at halftime, and it was 17-17 midway through the third quarter, and it was mistake. I mean, it's not Casey Thompson's fault that he got hit, but you need to have some pocket awareness and hold on to the ball. You know what I mean? Like I've ripped Adrian Martinez for fumbling in the pocket too, so I'm going to rip Casey Thompson. And the bottom line is we need a quarterback that's not turning it over 2 times a game. So he has to take better care of the football. And I think that's why we're going to see more of a shift towards, this is an Anthony Grant led offense instead of, this isn't going to be some 300-yard a game passing offense, I don't think.
And I don't think that Scott Frost is a bad play caller either. I really don't. But he was coaching for his job, and there were adjustments made, and he was able to make them. And speaking of somebody who needs to make adjustments, Eric Schnander, oh my goodness, like that defense is not where it needs to be right now. I mean, and I don't think it's players. I really think it's scheme. I really think it's the plays he's calling, and I really think it's scheme because what we saw on Saturday, they got better as the game went on, but something is just not right. And last year we had guys like JoJo and Cam Taylor Britt to, cover the mistakes. And this year we don't have it. And if you remember, last year was like the first year uh, with Schnander leading the defense that we were like, okay, like this defense is keeping us in games. This defense is decent. I mean, prior to that, it was a mess. So I mean, I don't think Frost is doing himself any favors by keeping Schnander.
Yeah, I wasn't a Shenander fan, and then last year, yeah, they did start to play better, and I think the public opinion shifted a little bit that
It
oh
shifted
he's
for me.
yeah,
Hmm.
it definitely shifted. You could feel it shift, but the thing that bugs me that I keep seeing is the big plays. I mean, they had a 63-yard run. It wasn't a touchdown run, but it set up a score. And it's just, I don't see why they have to give plays like that up every game. They give up big runs and big plays like that almost every single game. And, you know, I don't know if it's scheme or personnel. I think sometimes, like I've been saying, I do think sometimes he plays the wrong personnel. I think you need I've never been a fan of this nickel linebacker stuff. I mean, I like it. I don't mind having. I mean, I wouldn't mind having like 1 or 2 linebackers, but I don't like having 3 linebackers on the field almost ever. And we're doing it all the time. It makes no sense. We're like the only team in college football that's like putting more linebackers on the field instead of less. I mean, Isaac Giffords played well. I don't want to criticize him, but there's a difference between, like Isaac Gifford and like, Marquez Buford or something. I mean, their body type, the size, defensive backs are just, they're more, that's what they do. They cover people. So I think I've been saying it. I think we need more speed on the field, but
Well, I think our problem is if we get if the running back gets by the defensive line, then the linebackers are the ones, on that second level of the defense, and they're just not quick enough. They really just aren't quick enough, and that causes problems. So, and then there seems to be this habit of on certain plays, corners coming down and opposing wide receivers being able to literally go over the top, especially in the red zone for a touchdown. Like it works for the opposing offense, like no problem at all. I've seen it, a couple times against Northwestern, 1 or 2 times on Saturday, and their red zone defensive schemes are absolutely horrible.
yeah, I don't know if they get, start to bite on play action or, what it is, but I mean, I just, you look at this defense and there's really no playmakers on it, to be honest. I mean, Garrett Nelson played well on Saturday, but he didn't dominate. And this was against North Dakota, and he got one strip sack, like, so O'Shawn Mathis got a sack, but it's just, I don't see anybody there's no Anthony Grant on this defense right now. And Garrett Nelson hasn't delivered on that aspect to me. O'Shawn Mathis hasn't, Luke Reimer and Heinrich didn't play, but we need some playmakers on defense because we had some last year, and right now I'm not seeing really anybody. I mean, hopefully Garrett Nelson can build on that, but he looks kind of slow to me, honestly.
Yeah, this defense, particularly the linebackers, have been disappointing so far. And yes, it's only 2 games, but we can't start off slow against the likes of Oklahoma, Michigan, Illinois, even Iowa. It's just about building habits that will get you ready for the harder games, and we can't even make the quote unquote easy games look easy.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, there's going to be another challenge. Georgia Southern. I don't know how much you've checked them out, but
Yeah,
they won like 59-3.
yeah, they're
You know,
good.
Clay Helton. I mean, they were 3-9 last year. I don't want to like jump to conclusions and say, I don't know much about Morgan State, who they beat, but Clay Helton came over from USC, and it's not going to be a pushover. They're going to be ready to go. But Saturday night, I think we really should see the best of this Nebraska team that we haven't seen yet. That's kind of my anticipation, and I really hope so because we need to get some momentum. Going into that Oklahoma game. Um, but yeah, I hope that we see more Anthony Grant. Did you? One thing I wanted to mention. I guess Ramir Johnson got a tweet out and deleted it. What was that about? I didn't see that. Did you see it before he
I
deleted
didn't
it?
I didn't see the tweet either, but I can go look it up real quick, see if it has
What
anything.
What do you think about the Ramir Johnson situation, though? It is a little weird that he's not touched the ball one time.
It is a little weird, but with this staff, when they fall in love with like gadget, like duck back players, so to speak, they literally feed them the ball to the point where they're like exhausted and run to the ground. So I'd honestly rather not have the temptation of, a type of gadget player and just focus on running the football and, passing to the wide receivers. I mean, it is a little weird, but I see a offensive formula that is starting to work, and I don't know if Ramir fits into that equation. I really don't. And it's not because of lack of skill, it's just because of, I don't with the emergence of Anthony Grant and, how well AJ Allen played on Saturday, that kind of shifts the offensive focus in my opinion.
I mean, I think it should, but I still think that Ramir Johnson should have a role in this offense. I mean, the Brian Westbrook role that Mark Whipple talked about, throwing him the football. I mean, Casey Thompson needs more high percentage throws. And I think it would not hurt to have Ramir Johnson out there to throw some swing passes to, some screens, some check downs. Anthony Grant can do that type of stuff too. But, at any rate, I just think it's interesting that they're not utilizing him. And it seems like I wouldn't be surprised if he left and went in the transfer portal here pretty soon. But, I just think that they need more guys in the slot. They need more high percentage throws for Casey Thompson. I think everything's just down the field, and I don't trust the guy. I don't trust the guy at quarterback right now. I don't trust him with the ball. I mean, he didn't play well enough to win the Northwestern game, and to be honest, he didn't really play all that well against North Dakota. So I mean, if it wasn't for Anthony Grant, it might be a different story. So I wanted Casey Thompson to be the solution. But after 2 games, I don't know that he's much better than Adrian Martinez, honestly.
I don't know. I mean, I think it makes a difference when you have a balanced play calling sheet. I mean, in the first quarter, he was literally getting his head knocked in, and by the third quarter, he looked exhausted. I mean, he looked exhausted. So I think play calling balance will be able to help him a lot. I'm not ready to give up on him yet. He did have a couple of rough games, but I think that balance of play calling needs to be there throughout the entire game, especially with this offensive line. If nothing else, just to give Thompson a little bit of a breather because that line is still not good. And I know I've said it already, but this line is a mess.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not giving up on Casey Thompson, but I don't think he's an upgrade really at quarterback. I think he's basically, he's a better passing version of Adrian Martinez. Can't run the ball as well. I mean, so there is plus and minuses. He ran the ball a little bit, over the week, but yeah, I mean, I just think that we'll see what happens. I mean, I think that I would like to see him throwing the ball 20 times a game. I think if he starts throwing it 30, 40 times a game, I
Yeah.
think Nebraska's going to lose. I just don't think he's going to take care of the ball well enough.
And they don't need to. That's the thing. Like, if you think about it, Casey Thompson's a pocket passing quarterback. So what do? You complement that by getting strong running backs in the running back room. And that's what they did this offseason. And now it's just about finding the balance. And, I don't think Mark Whipple's found the balance yet. Maybe Scott Frost, will help him find the balance, but it's not going to be like Kenny Pickett. You're going to need to find some sort of balance, and not just in the third and fourth quarters, but throughout the entire game.
Yeah, and we'll see. We'll see what happens. I like the receiving core, but yeah, I think that Whipple has kind of lived up to that. He fell in love with the passing game too much, I think, and so we'll see what happens this week. But I really hope they try to come out and establish Anthony Grant. And I don't know. I just don't know what to kind of expect, from this team. I guess through 2 games, like if I was to hand out grades for they wouldn't be very good. They'd be like C's across the board at this point.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, A plus for Brian Buschini, but that's about it. I mean, I've been very impressed
Yeah.
with Brian Buschini, and it's sad when he's the highlight of, the season so far, and it's sad when we consider good punting to be like this amazing thing, but that's where we've been at the past couple of years. So there you have it. I don't know what to tell you guys.
Yeah, Buccini and then Grant. I mean, they've been the two standouts. Defensively, yeah, they need some guys to step up. Really, I think that's been the biggest kind of misjudgment. I mean, we kind of knew the offensive line sucked, and we were optimistic that it was going to be better. I think putting Lutovsky in there, taking out Bando, I think that helped. I think they were better once he made that move, and so we'll see. I still have hope for those guys, but defensively, I think we just kind of overrated, the defense, and maybe it was because of Schnander and some of the transfers, or just some of these guys that were here before. But they need to start making some more impact plays. We just have not seen that. I think they got two or three sacks on sack. I mean, through 2 games, I think we've got 3 sacks. That's the same old shit that we did last year. You cannot win if you're getting 3 sacks in 2 games. You're just not going to do it.
I honestly think it's a play calling issue. I mean, yes, it goes with mismanaging personnel, but I don't think the right schemes are being called defensively, and I think that falls on Shenander.
I mean, I think it has some to do with the scheme, but I always go back to that. It's not the X's and the X's and the O's. It's the Billies and the Joes, and I think Nebraska just doesn't have the Billies and the Joes. I mean, I don't. Shenander's scheme. It doesn't. Garrett Nelson still can't win one-on-one blocks. He's not winning on the edge. You know what I mean? Like these guys aren't.
Yeah.
They're not getting off blocks. They're missing tackles. Like I think they just got to play better. I think O'Shawn Mathis has to play better. He's got to start showing up, and they've got to play Devin Drew more. I think, Hutchmaker and Feast need to go to the bench. Sorry, guys. Ty Robinson needs to step his ass up. I
Yeah,
mean, he has sucked.
he has not been good at all. And
Oh,
honestly, I would consider him as somebody who needs to go to the bench, but he's been absolutely brutal. And he was one of the ones that I was really excited about coming into this season, and he showed flashes last year, but just has not been there this year.
yeah, and it's tough because there's not a lot of depth. They've got a couple of, sophomore guys there. I think like Raekwon.
Rick,
Um,
Buckley?
yeah, Buckley. Yep. He was a pretty good
Yeah.
pickup. So they've got some talent there, but they don't really have, any of those proven guys. So I would really like to see, I think that the more they can get Devin Drew in there, I think win from Alabama, but you can really see like this team needs more defensive line depth, which is probably why they're, interested in that Western Iowa defensive tackle. and blanking on his name, but it's definitely got to be a focus, I think, in the transfer portal and, the JUCO ranks, because they don't have enough defensive tackles. I mean, it's clear that's like the weakest position on the defense.
And like this is something I talked about before the season started. They're in this tough position of needing to win now, but needing to win now with all these new pieces. Like
Yeah.
people are still trying to figure out all their roles, and we already like want them, to win. And is that an excuse? Well, no, not necessarily. but there is an element where you need to figure out where these um, players go, where they fit on the offense, what are their strengths and weaknesses, and that takes time. And this year, Nebraska doesn't have it for the sake of everybody's job.
Yeah, they got to figure it out quick. I mean, they got to hopefully play a better game against Georgia Southern. Really, it doesn't matter. They just have to beat Georgia Southern, and then it's all about Oklahoma. I mean, that's what this whole, Scott Frost thing. If he loses that game, then it's going to be. I mean, I'm not saying he's going to get fired that day unless they get totally boat raced by Oklahoma, like 38-10. I think that would, if it's something like that, I think that's the end. Maybe they'll wait until October 1st to save a few bucks, but it's coming soon. And so I think it's really building up to that game, but it's like Scott Frost just has to make it through these to get to that game, 2-1, to have kind of a chance to save his job. Because if you beat Oklahoma, as long as you don't shit the bed the rest of the season, you're coming back, because you should be able to make a bowl game if you do that. And then you've got one big win on your resume and something for people to, cling on to and have some hope, going into the future.
And this is where I think the running game is going to come into play with a game like Oklahoma. Control the clock. If you get 2 yards, you get 2 yards. Don't force Thompson to make any tough throws. And we'll get into it more once Oklahoma week comes. But, I mean, and you never want to look ahead to future opponents, but that's the one that we've all kind of had circled on our calendar, so to speak.
Yeah, for sure. I think I am interested to see what they do against Georgia Southern, but yeah, I want to see Anthony Grant hopefully get another 100 yards this week, and AJ Allen I think is going to get more carries. I do think that going back to Casey Thompson, instead, if we can get to a situation where he's got a play action passing game to work with, and he's in 2nd and 5 a lot, and that's going to make his job easier too. I mean, to be fair on him, it's not easy when you're sitting there 1st and 10, 2nd and 10, 3rd and 10. Guys are dropping passes. It's a new line. So, I mean, I do like what I've seen from him in terms of a thrower, and he is an upgrade as a thrower, but I think Nebraska can't fall in love with that and be like, we're going to throw 40 times a game. No, you've got one of the best running backs in the Big Ten in Anthony Grant, and whatever we've seen out of this offensive line, they can run block better than they can pass block. So let's play into that.
Well, the play action pass does two things, right? One, you can set it up via the run. It keeps the defense honest. And two, it gives Thompson a chance to kind of get out of the pocket a little bit and just set his feet versus going under center. That's the other thing. Mark Whipple loves to go under center with this offensive line. They should not go under center if they can help it. I mean, they need to go in the shotgun because there were a couple times on Saturday where Thompson had literally a second to throw and there was just nothing there. So if I'm Frost and Whipple, and I don't even care if opponents know it, put Casey Thompson in the shotgun and just try to save him from getting beat up so early.
Yeah, and part of it too, it's one thing that we talked about constantly on Saturday. If you didn't join us, we were watching the game together through playback, which we'll be doing this Saturday as
A lot
well.
of
So
emotions on Saturday, that's for
yeah, a lot
sure.
of emotions. But that time of possession, North Dakota had it like 36 minutes.
That was crazy.
That's what Nebraska needs to do. We need to have the ball for 36 minutes. We need to run the football, keep our defense off the field because they suck, and that'll be a lot better. If the Nebraska defense, the best thing we can do is have them on the field for 20-some minutes a game. That'll be, it's not rocket science. Football is not rocket science. And so that's one thing I'd like these Nebraska coaches to remember. I know you got a lot of talented players, but Anthony Grant is your best player. Give him the football as much as possible. It's not that hard.
And if he needs a breather, put in AJ Allen. I think, he's a guy that can be trusted to kind of, you know, supplement the running game. And again, I know it's tough with all these playmakers, but we don't need sexy football. We need winning football and touchdowns and gritty plays, and just get back to the basics. Get back to the basics and don't try to overdo it. That's why I think, the second half of Saturday's game worked so well was just because they ran the football, they stuck with it. Grant got into a rhythm, he got hot, and he was able to make things happen.
Yeah, you're exactly right, though, man. We don't need anything sexy. We just need some more wins. So hopefully we'll get another one of those on Saturday. But since we got a bit of a late start here, so I'm gonna have to get rolling. But Yeah, it's been a good. We're going to have our Husker Big Red podcast episodes here every Monday. So make sure that you're checking us out. We'll have some more content this week. And we're going to be also promoting our watch party again on Saturday. So, Georgia Southern, Nebraska, we'll have that about, what is it, 6:30 Nebraska time. It's going to start, I believe, 6
Yeah,
o'clock.
7:30 on my end, and I'm an hour ahead of Nebraska, so.
Yep. So we'll be there for the pregame show and everything. So make sure you guys come and check us out. Watch some games with Danny. You can get our live analysis, while you're also watching the game. So you can add a little bit more flavor to your football Saturdays. So we'll also have some other content here. Check out thegreatcornholio.org this week. You can see everything that Danny's producing about the Huskers. You can find my stuff over at huskerbigred.com. And as always, folks, go Big Red.
Go Big Red.